How are we doing, guys?
Sorry, I didn't come that day because she told me I had my baby with me.
Yeah, don't worry about it. I thought it would be better for us to talk when you're in a better place, you know, like without the distraction of
My son.
yeah, without the distraction of small children. It's hard to concentrate on stuff when
Because
you.
my wife had to go somewhere. She said, please look after my child.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. How you guys doing?
I'm alright. So I told her, if you want, we can meet one day together because he knows a lot about hadith.
Yeah.
We have a lot of contradictions.
Because you reject the hadiths, don't you?
I reject most of them.
Yeah,
Not all of them.
bro. Yeah. Go on. You were saying. We'll have to talk. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought maybe we can be together, three of us.
Yeah.
Everyone have different set of mind.
Yeah, I would love to talk. I think it would be nicer if we talk away from the park than in the park.
Yeah.
You know, because in this environment, if we have a conversation,
attraction.
yeah, there'll be people crashing into it, and I'd rather have a calmer conversation. And you know, one of the topics we can talk about is your attitude to hadiths. Because I agree with you. I obviously reject all the hadiths.
Everyone have different. Yeah.
Yeah, you reject most of the hadiths, and he rejects all the Shia hadiths. So we're all hadith rejectors here. There's not a single one of us that isn't a hadith rejector.
Why do you though?
What?
I thought you do. Why do you though?
Why do I reject hadiths?
Yeah.
So the reason why I reject hadiths is because
There is clear ayahs.
he was asking me.
Sorry.
Firas. So the reason why I reject hadiths is because they're hundreds of years late. The argument that you can trust a hadith is just completely bogus and made up. It's all based on these books of biographies. But what makes the books of biographies reliable and trustworthy? And also the books of biographies are even later than the hadiths themselves. So they're hundreds of years late. They're only vouched for by other books, and that's not a validation of anything. We know that people were making up spurious and fake hadiths, especially when the Abbasids overthrew the Umayyads, or was it the Umayyads overthrew the Abbasids? I always get those two mixed up. One overthrew the other. And we know at that time that everybody started making up hadiths to justify their camp and to justify their position and practices.
And also Quran.
I haven't finished. The other reason is that hadiths, like, they literally contradict one another. They literally contradict one another.
Big
I haven't seen one.
All of it.
Big time.
Yeah, they contradict one another. And plus, if I was to believe the hadiths, I would just have to conclude that Muhammad was an evil man. I really would. Bottom line, if I believe the hadiths, Muhammad was an evil man.
But that's apply.
Sorry, we're having a conversation. You can join in, but just be polite.
this point.
That's fine.
This is apply of
He's with me,
every single part of this history. Any history of
Yeah.
the life. This is apply in every single history.
Yeah.
Hadith is let's say it as a history.
Are you a hadith rejector as well?
No.
No, he's
I'm just
Salafi.
trying. I'm just trying.
I know.
Fuck you. Man.
You're friends, right?
Man. This
Okay,
is,
okay.
This is the same as any part of this history.
Yeah.
How we know at this year, at this war, at this time, this happened, that happened. Man.
Yeah.
So yeah, of course, it's logically that it's not all the hadith is acceptable.
Agreed. Yeah,
it.
so my point is that especially, it's not so much a problem for him, but it is a problem for you two, is that if you use the hadiths to interpret the Quran, if the hadiths can't be trusted, then that means your interpretation of the Quran can't be trusted either.
Yeah, but you're not including all the hadith when you say hadith.
Some
you're
of
not
them-
including all of it.
I'm including all the hadiths. I'm including all the hadiths. I don't trust any of the hadiths.
I disagree with you.
Right.
But you also don't trust Quran.
I don't trust the Quran either.
Completely, all of it.
I'm happy to, wherever the Quran says something that agrees with my faith, like for instance there's one
Related
God,
to Jesus.
I'm happy to go, hey, it says something that is true.
Then you can use it against the Muslim. Because the Quran said a lot of good things about Jesus.
Yeah.
You denied the meaning of the hadith or the action. It's not true that someone has transferred it from one generation to the other. So what you denied in exactly?
I'm denying all of it. So I deny, one second. One
this
second.
is not correct. Didn't happen.
Yeah.
This person who has
Yeah,
said that or that.
I'll give you an example.
Never exists.
I'll give you an
Is that
example.
what you mean?
I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. In the methodology of Imam Muslim, when he was writing his Isnad chain, is that he just assumed That's the big word. Underline that. Put it in italics. And let me finish my point. No, I'm going to finish my point. I'm going to finish my point. I'm going to finish my point. Going to finish my point. Imam Muslim, in his methodology, simply assumed that because two people in an isnad chain could have met, that therefore they did meet. He has no evidence they ever actually met. Sahih al-Bukhari, Imam Bukhari, he never writes down what his methodology is. The methodology that Muslims think that Sahih al-Imam Bukhari is using is what later scholars think that he used. They don't know the methodology that he used to create his chains.
So as you're saying, if we apply this theory on your books, would be correct?
So let me address my Gospels.
Okay.
Let me use my Gospels. That's a fair question. I made a criticism.
Yeah.
And it's only fair that if... Let me finish.
Suits, yeah.
It's only fair if I make a criticism of Islam, that you should be able to apply that criticism back to my religion and to see if my religion can pass the test. But here's the point.
Yeah.
The Gospels were written within the first generation of the church.
Yeah.
So there was no need for an isnad chain. We knew...
How I know.
Right, so the Gospels were all written in the first century. They were all written at the time that the apostles and the witnesses were alive. They don't need an isnad chain because the community knew who wrote them.
But from what
Whereas the reason stay. The reason no, don't send him away, Firas.
I told him you know a lot.
You're tough. He's saying you're tough.
Yeah, I am. The isnad chain, you only need an isnad chain if your sources are so late that you have to justify that they're reliable. The reason why the church never thought to create an isnad chain is because everyone who had the books at the time that the books were written knew who wrote them. The reason why
That's happened after 40 years of that Jesus died.
Correct.
So
Yes.
So why I cannot apply of what you say on the same case? You said they think.
Right. So
Okay.
so
why,
let's.
Why wouldn't that be correct in your case?
The isnad chain of all of the Gospels is one person.
Again,
It's
I
one
cannot
person.
be sure about that.
How do you know? How can you know you can't be
you,
sure?
you have a statement. Prove it.
Yes.
1 second. You made a statement. Prove
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
From what I know that the Bible has been.
I want to come back to your point.
All right.
From what I know, I heard that the Bible has been written by exactly 40 people. A Christian friend of me, Christian Arabic,
Yeah.
said it's been written by 40 people.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Not 39 or 30?
I mean, I've not counted the number of authors of the Bible, but yeah, it's definitely more than one. It's definitely more than 10. Like, I wouldn't be able to put a number
than
on it
version.
as a point of fact. No, these are catchphrases, bro. These are just catchphrases.
So God said in the Quran, one of the verses, that
So hasn't been
if this
upgraded
word
at
are
all.
not
Again,
from me-
catchphrases. Just catchphrases. Annoying catchphrases. And if you want to talk about modernizations, look at the 1923 Egyptian version of the Quran that most Muslims use today.
That's not correct.
Yeah, you don't know the history of the text.
I do.
Yeah, no, you don't, because when Egypt was founded as a kingdom, after the British left, they set up an educational system, and they needed Qurans to teach in those schools, and they put out an appeal around the Islamic world. Sorry, we're in the middle. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
They put out an appeal to the Islamic world, send us Qurans for our schools. And they got Qurans from everywhere in the Islamic world. And when they were asking questions to the students about what the Quran said, the students were saying to the teachers, these Qurans say different things.
Who's saying that?
And then,
One second.
because of
Who's
that,
saying that?
and then the students in the Egyptian
why would I
schools,
believe you?
and
What you say?
then because you don't know the history of your own text,
How
and
you
then
judge me?
one
That's- I
second,
don't know.
one
How
second,
you judge me?
exactly.
I've never met you.
Exactly, you don't know the history of your own text. You when you throw out
Come on, man.
catchphrases like
Come on,
the
don't
modern
accuse me of
version,
I'm
what
not
about the
accusing you.
modern 1923 version of the Quran? I find catchphrases frustrating because what it does, a catchphrase means someone doesn't have to think about what they're saying. They don't have to think about what they're saying.
That's not true.
Don't use catchphrases.
It's not about catchphrases, man. But you don't agree that there is some motivations happen
القرآن اللي احنا نعرفه
on your books.
So, I'm happy
Correct me if
to...
I'm wrong.
Right.
I'm not, I don't know. I don't know. It might be catchphrases. Is there any motivations happen on your books?
Yes.
Okay. So what do you call that in
Right.
English?
So,
what do you call that?
so we-
upgrade, update,
Right.
motivation.
So what do we call it to the 1923 Quran then? We call it revisions, upgrades, and modifications.
But I didn't. You agree about your motivation. I didn't agree about that.
Your-
And
your
you
agreement-
haven't prove it.
Your agreement is not needed for the facts, my friend. Your agreement is not needed for the facts.
Oh, and you saying it doesn't say that is correct.
The 1923 version of the Quran was produced in 1923.
When you say version of Quran,
Yeah.
there is nothing called that.
Of course, there are versions of the Quran. The Hafs Quran, the Wash Quran, the Duri Quran, they're all different Quranic texts.
So you don't believe in the Quran is the word of God. You don't believe Muhammad is the prophet of God, as of course, yeah, everything. None of this. What about in the Old Testament?
You got to be more forceful if you want to get
Yeah, I
into
know.
this.
I can see.
Let's go to the Old Testament. As you know, everyone knows that God said He will make a great nation from Ishmael.
Yes.
Do you think Muhammad is related to Ishmael?
No.
Okay. If not Muhammad related to Ishmael, do you have, because this blessed is promised by God in
Yeah.
the Old Testament.
Yes.
Did any other nation or prophet claim the blessing of Ishmael?
Yes.
If
The,
not Muhammad.
yes. The prophecy that it's actually recorded in the Old Testament that the sons of Ishmael become great kings.
And it's finished.
Yeah, it's done. They had their moment in the sun. The sons of Ishmael became great kings. It's there in the Old Testament. It's
I do
recorded.
think it's finished.
It's done. Yes.
What does great nation mean, though? What does great mean?
But wait,
He
what
said,
was
"I will
let me
multiply
finish.
and fruitful."
Yes.
There's so many things.
So let me finish. I don't deny that God blessed the line of Ishmael.
Yeah.
Every Christian affirms this, and every Muslim knows that every Christian affirms this. Can we have a more intelligent conversation? The reality is,
Yes.
the covenant is established with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
And also God who
And
will
all,
make a big, great,
and
blessed
all,
nation from Ishmael.
and all the prophets were sent to Israel. Even the Quran says that the gift of prophecy was given to Israel. So even the Quran affirms that. No prophet comes outside of Israel except in the New Covenant. Except in the New Covenant.
Deuteronomy 33, and this is the blessing where with Musa, the man of God, blessed the children of Israel before
Yes.
these days.
Yes.
And he said, the Lord in the middle come from Sinai and rose up from Seir into them, which is related to Jesus, and he shied from Mount Paran.
Yeah.
So basically he mentioned two things. For me it's mean rise of Islam and rise of Christianity.
That's your eisegesis. You're reading into the text something that's not there.
It is from the Old Testament.
Yeah, but the way you're interpreting it is not in the text.
It's not in the text.
Not in
So
the text.
how do you interpret it then?
So can
what
we?
shines
So let
forth
me.
from Mount Paran?
The glory of the Lord.
Can we just come back to the whole
Yeah, but
Quran?
everyone knows that Ismail was living
Right.
in Paran.
Wait.
Can we come back to the Quran conversation for a second?
Yeah.
So I have two questions. You said that the Bible, the New Testament was written, the people knew who wrote them, and therefore that's how they were put in the canon. But my two questions are, then why is it that there's been books that has been taken out and taken into the canon
Yeah.
hundreds of years after?
Yeah.
And the second question is, why were the books attributed to the authors like about 200 years in the second century?
Right, so two questions, two answers. Answer to the first question is that in the early church, the understanding of the canon was globulous, nebulous. It wasn't a question that the church had really addressed. When it addressed the question, it came up with the 27 books in the New Testament. In the Reformation period, Martin Luther took some books out of the Old Testament because to him, the Old Testament was what the Jews were using, but the Jews had decided their canon at the Council of Jamina in the year 100 AD, and Martin Luther just wasn't aware of that. But whereas the early church was using the Septuagint, which contained the extra books that Martin Luther took out. Now, so that explains the questions about the books. Now, the attribution of the names. The attribution of the names is in the 2nd century, you're quite right. And the reason why it occurs in the 2nd century is because by that point, the cultural memory of the church was dying out. The people that were there in the first generation of Christians, and maybe even the second generation of Christians, knew who wrote Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But because the church in the 2nd century was losing that cultural memory, people started asking the question, who wrote this book? And so the church had to answer the question. And to answer the question, it simply appealed to its memory. And its memory was that living tradition of the church. And that's why it ascribes the names, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Now, here's 1 second. Think about this. the church by this point had already spread throughout the Roman Empire. If people were making it up, we would see examples of different groups arguing that Gospels were written by different people, but they never do. It's never an argument, ever.
They did argue about which books are in the canon. And which
No, they argued about which books should be included in the canon, but firstly, that argument never, ever involved the 4 Gospels. It never involved 22 of the 27 letters. The argument was about 5 of the letters in the New Testament. 5. And I can name them.
Go.
Hebrews, Revelations, John 2, John 3, Peter 2. That's what they were arguing about.
There was the one about the shepherds and the one about...
Yeah, the shepherds of Hermes. That was one of the ones that they were arguing about as well. You're right, but obviously I'm not counting that because it wasn't one of the canonical books, right? So yes, you can include the shepherd of Hermes as well, right? But my point to you is that when it came to the authorship of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, there was never an argument. But if people were making it up, remember they didn't have internet in those days. Different bishops couldn't comment via text message. But there was no disagree. No, it wasn't like someone was arguing. No, it was the Apostle Jude that wrote the Gospel of John. It wasn't like someone was writing. It was the Apostle Thomas that wrote the Gospel of Luke. That argument never occurred. Okay.
I don't believe that
Where am I
the
going?
blessing of Ishmael
Where am I
has
going?
been finished.
Where am I
And,
going? Which part of the Old Testament am I going to?
There's so many things, not only one. But
Just go to
let's
one.
talk back to
Deuteronomy.
the main one.
Which Deuteronomy? What?
33.
Deuteronomy 33.
Deuteronomy.
Deuteronomy. Go on.
You say
Which verse do you want me to read?
33. And this is the blessing where with Moses, the man of God, blessed the children of Israel
Yeah.
before his death.
Yeah.
And he said, the Lord came from Sinai.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
And rose up from Seir into them.
Yeah.
And he shined forth from Mount Paran, which relate to
Yeah.
Kedar tribe, where Ishmael lived.
No, it's just a mountain. Carry on.
And this is the main one. And he come with 10,000 of sand from his right hand,
Yeah.
went very low for them.
Yeah.
What he said here, the Lord come from Sinai, and then he mentioned 2 things that
Yeah.
will be rise.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. What do you think?
Right. So it's saying that in the time of Moses, God showed him his glory on 2 mountains. Yeah. Dawned from there from Seir. Sorry, the Lord came from Sinai and dawned on them from Seir and shone forth from the Mount of Paran. So it's talking about yes, it's talking about the immediate historical experience of the people of Israel. That is not a prophecy about Islam.
Okay, but he said 2 things, yeah? He raised forth from Mount Paran,
Correct.
and he rose up from Seir into
Yes,
them.
and he
So
shone
mentioned
from-
2 things. So
and he-
now
yes.
you're saying that the Seir, which is related to Jesus,
Yeah.
is right.
No, I didn't. I didn't say that. No, I didn't say that. No, I didn't say
Does
that.
Seir mean relate to Jesus?
No, I'm not even going to argue that point. I'm just saying that he's accounting the fact of the revelation of the glory of the Lord. That's what he's doing here, and he's doing it, and he's just mentioning 3 places that are connected to that revelation of his glory. I am not interpreting any of it as a prophecy.
Not as 2 main.
No, it's just talking.
gonna
It's just describing an experience.
before he died.
If I said to you, the sun rise today beautifully, and the clouds were golden, and it stretched from Hackney to I don't know, Hemel Hempstead, like. That doesn't mean that I'm making a prophecy. It means that I'm describing an event, and that's all that is happening in this passage.
Okay, another one from Genesis chapter 7.
Firas, can I suggest something to you? You want to see something in this text because there's something in your heart that desires to see it, and so you're looking for proof to validate what you already believe, and you're not engaging with the text for what it actually says.
But I have a Bible, but in Arabic.
Right.
So when I see it, I can see there is something.
Yeah.
Especially in Genesis, when God said in Genesis 20.
Yeah.
And also
Genesis
God
20,
said about
bear with us.
Ismail, I have
1
heard-
second. So you haven't won me on that passage. Let's see if you can do better with Genesis 20.
Yeah. Because you said that the blessing of Ishmael is finished.
Yeah, the prophecy that Ishmael's children will be a great nation did occur. It happened.
And it's finished.
The Bible records it. They become great kingdoms, and that prophecy is completed.
And it's finished.
I'd have to find it for you, but I know it's definitely in there.
Okay.
I'd have to show it to you, but I can find it
How can you verify what
with
you
a
said
good
that-
Google search.
How can you actually? Let's go back to this one.
Right. So Genesis 20. Go on.
Yeah. I have it in Arabic, so see in English.
Which verse?
20.
Yeah, I'll read it. God was with the lad, and he grew, and he lived in the wilderness and became an archer. He lived in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took a wife for him from the land of Egypt.
Yeah, and also another one.
Yeah.
And also about Ishmael, I have heard you about him.
Yeah, so
Is
Ishmael-
I'm gonna bless him.
Yeah.
And multiply him.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna fruitful him,
Yeah.
multiply him, and I will make him a big nation.
Yes.
Now my question is, where is the promised God, the blessed and big and great nation, if it's not the Islam?
Yes.
It cannot be finished and complete.
No, hold on one second. Hold on one second. Hold on one second. The Arabs did become a great nation.
So you're relating it to Arab, not to Islam.
No. It's because of their ethnicity that they received a blessing,
What the blessed
not their
God
religion.
for the Jew?
What?
The blessed that God
So
gave to the Jew.
look, they're not the same. Look, and I'll show you why. Because in Genesis 21, and sorry, I misread the passage. I read 21:20, and you said 20.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, so my bad. But in Genesis 21, in verse 11, it says, "The matter distressed Abraham greatly because of his son. But God said to Abraham, do not be distressed because the lad and your maid, because of the lad and your maid, whatever Sarah tells you, listen to her, for through Isaac your descendants shall be named. And of the son of the maid I will make a nation also, because he is your descendant." So God promises to make a nation of both Isaac's descendants and Ishmael's descendants, and he does, but it is through Abraham's son Isaac that the covenant is given.
That's from the Bible.
That is from the Bible. The Bible you're quoting.
What does greater fruit?
But he said
They will
also,
accept these things.
I don't think God is racist, so he can give a full blessing to Isaac
Yep.
and a small blessing to Ishmael.
Yeah.
And the blessing of Ishmael is finished, where God they should be fair and give both blessings, because at that time,
What does greater fruit for me? What does he mean when he says I will
Quran
make?
perfect. Is Quran perfect?
Yeah,
he's atheist.
Say something Quranic.
that's not the conversation we're having.
Yeah, that's not the conversation we're having.
They're not going to accept what you're saying. Never ever.
Well, I'm not
Never,
writing him
ever.
off. I think he's a sincere man. I think he's a sincere man, and I think sincere people can find the
Anyone
truth.
reads Quran is insincere.
No, that's not true.
Do you know anyone?
I know lots of Muslims
Bring
who
one
are
of
very
them to the-
sincere. Right, I'm looking at him. I'm looking at him.
Okay.
They read the
One
Quran, and
question
I think
then,
they're
one
both
question.
sincere.
So this is sincere.
I
yes?
think you have. I think
One
you're
moment,
too
please.
quick to judge
One
all
moment,
Muslims.
Please, I'll prove it to you.
You're going to
What
prove
is
to me
ashhad?
that all
What is
Muslims.
ashhad? What is ashhad?
I'm not gonna ask you
Why?
because I don't want to.
I've told
I
you
will prove to you
already.
they're liars, all of them, indiscriminately.
No, they're not
I've
all
told you
liars.
already.
Listen, ask
They're not
what is
all
ashhad.
liars.
You know ashhad?
I
They're
have
not
told you
all
already.
liars.
You did not answer my question when I told you where is the consciousness of a human being come from, because this one doesn't belong to this
What
earth.
is
You did not give me an
shahada?
answer
What
for
is
me.
shahada?
You're talking
Tell
about
me.
something else.
Tell me your
when
shahada.
I ask you where is the
Shahada.
consciousness of our human brain, where does it come from? You did not give me an answer for it. So
What
you
is
can't give me an
shahada?
answer for it.
Shahada, you ask what shahada is, that is the lie, you can catch them out.
As shahada,
You
when we
understand?
say I witness
Okay.
there is only one God.
Did you hear that?
Yeah,
Witness.
and Musa is a messenger of God.
Not Musa.
I
You
am
didn't say
believe
Musa.
in God,
Muhammad you
and
said.
I'm following Musa. So I'm believing in God. and follow of Musa.
Faraz, I'm not interested in what he's got to say. I don't
You're going
believe.
around.
I'm not interested in what he's got to say.
They
Stop
don't know
engaging
how
him.
to challenge you
Let's just
either.
focus on our conversation.
And you don't know how to challenge him.
Can you explain to me what does it mean that he will make Ishmael a great nation? Does it mean great in numbers or does it mean great in virtue?
He said,
It says-
it
says-
multiply them. That's
So
what they
it says
told me.
that Ishmael will be made a great nation,
Yeah.
and that is a blessing that they will have power. And we see that in the Old Testament, that the descendants of Ishmael become mighty kingdoms. It's there in the Old Testament. The prophecy is fulfilled in the Old Testament. The Ishmaelites do become a mighty nation, but mighty nations come and go. And the Arabs are a great nation. They're very multiple these days.
Yeah, but what
You
great?
know?
Wait, I'm trying to understand what the word great means.
Okay,
Does it only mean numbers, or does it mean virtue, or does it mean
I'm talking in
Great
power.
nation. He
Does
said
it power?
and fruitful then?
I wouldn't. I don't necessarily believe in virtue.
No.
I believe in virtue, but I don't necessarily believe that that's part of the promise to Ishmael, that his descendants will be great in virtue. And I don't believe that Muhammad is a descendant of Ishmael.
Why do you not believe
From
that?
what I
Because
see,
there's no Muslim can prove that Ishmael is descendant from Muhammad is descendant from
from
Ishmael.
Kedar tribe, I have seen direct
It
connection.
doesn't prove nothing.
Kedar.
There were not. Would you agree that there were non-Arabs in the Arabian Peninsula in the 7th century? Right. Would you agree that those non-Arabs are not descendant from Ishmael?
Some.
Right? Thank you. So you don't know that Muhammad was an Arab by ethnicity. All you know is that he was someone who spoke Arab, but there were lots of non-Arabic ethnic people in the Arabian Peninsula that spoke Arabic.
I think you could tell by someone's face.
Do you have a picture of Muhammad's face?
His people
We're not
had
allowed
a
to have
picture of
pictures.
him. The people at the time knew.
I
I don't have a picture, but they knew him in person.
Yeah, they said he was a white man.
I've been recently before in Hajj.
Yeah.
So you go around Kaaba 7 times.
Yeah.
And then the most important thing is you go and you do sa'i.
Yeah.
Now, if you believe that this sa'i for Hajar, when she was suffering,
Which we don't.
looking for water, yes,
Yeah.
it was in Egypt or there. At least we do it. Same like when you feel the suffering for Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah. We do this one so
Yeah.
we can feel the suffer of Hajar when she was looking
Yeah.
for water.
Yeah.
And I've done it. I went through.
Yeah.
sa'i
It's
with
all
my-
air conditioned now. It's in an air conditioned tunnel. You're really suffering in that air conditioned tunnel.
Yeah,
Because
what I'm
that's
saying-
really what Hagar suffered. Air conditioning.
And then
It's a bit like a feasting during Ramadan. That's really what we're talking about. That my point to you is, bro, my point to you is that nothing that Muhammad claimed to belong to Islam actually belonged to Islam.
Like what?
Well, Hagar, for instance. Hagar, he didn't understand that the covenant was made with Abraham through Isaac. It said, right, in chapter 17 and 18, it talks about it. It says, "Now the Lord appeared to him by the oak of Mamre, while he was sitting at the tent of the door at the heat of the day." And it goes on to say that Isaac is the son. He says, when they said to him, "Where is your Sarah, your wife?" And he said, "There in the tent," he said, "I will surely return to you at this time next year, and behold, Sarah, your wife, will have a son."
It's not about lack of knowledge, that's about believing the text of the story.
I'm
Right.
going to bring you next time my Bible because I have mentioned there is
Yeah.
before even Isaac born, God did
There is
promise
no
that
prophecy-
He will raise an offspring
There
from
is
Abraham.
Yeah, there is
Even
no.
before
Yes,
Isaac
Isaac.
born.
Isaac. It's
Before
the son is
born.
Isaac.
Before
The
Isaac
son
born,
Isaac.
At the time when Ishmael presented, God promised
Yes,
Abraham
and
that He will rise
yes,
offspring
and the
from
promise
his children.
is Isaac.
Can I ask you a question, Bob? Well,
Okay, let's say the
This is the second appearance. You're talking about an earlier appearance that happens in earlier chapters. I'm talking about the one where he actually says who's going to have the son of the covenant. And he says very clearly in black and white, "Look, behold," it says down here, verse 9, they said to him, where is Sarah, your wife?" And he said, "There in the tent." He said, "I will surely return to you at this time next year, and behold, Sarah, your wife, will have a son. And Sarah, your wife," and then Sarah was listening and she laughed because she didn't believe.
what guarantees you that the Jews did not do with the Old Testament what the Christians did with the New Testament?
Well, firstly, you can't prove that the Christians did anything with the New Testament. You can just claim it.
No, what I mean is that they
Can
added
I see it
text.
again just 1 second?
Because we
The
know
Old
that.
Testament, because
There
I
were a
remember.
lot-
I'll hold my Bible.
Sorry, no.
There was a lot of text added, a lot of text, and we know that because
Prove
we
it.
have textual criticism. That's the whole reason
Right,
we have
right,
textual
right.
criticism. No, Bob.
I know what you're saying, Amir.
But what's your guarantee that the Jews did not add text, distort text, and do things such
Okay,
similar things?
so firstly, let me correct you.
Yeah.
As someone who is familiar with the textual criticism that you're talking about, right? It isn't a lot of text. Just isn't. The vast majority, 99% of all the textual variants that scholars talk about are just spelling variants. That's 99% of all the textual variants. They're just spelling variants. 1% of textual variants are actually changes to the text.
I've done some research.
And I have as well, and I've been doing it a lot longer than you, Amir. Right? And the textual variants that you're talking about, they're not that text have been taken out.
Not out. No,
The textual variants are that there's a bit of extra text added in.
Added in, yes.
Yes, so that means that the problem that Christians face is not finding missing text. The problem that Christians face is to identify those texts that were added and we already have. We know them, chapter and verse, and we identify them for you in our Bibles, like, I'll do it for you now, like the ending of Mark, like the adulterae pericope, like 1 John chapter 5,
Those are the
verse
famous
7,
ones I'm talking
like, the passage where it says that Christ had blood coming from his eyes in the Gospel of Luke when he prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane, like the bit where Jesus said, this kind of demon only comes out by fasting, prayer and fasting. We're able to identify those passages because when you compare the 5,000 Greek manuscripts to one another and the 10,000 Latin manuscripts and the 5,000 scripts that exist in other languages, those texts that are added leap out at you.
I know.
And so it's really easy to identify where the changes are, and here's what all the scholarship agrees upon: not a single Christian doctrine is affected by any of them.
Read that one.
What am I reading?
Come back to that later.
The one you highlighted already. So.
Okay, right,
Again,
so
about
this is not about Islam, let's be clear, right?
Yes.
Then the angel of the Lord said to her, return to your mistress and submit yourself to her authority. Moreover, the angel of the Lord said to her, I will greatly multiply your descendants so that they will be too many to count. The angel of the Lord said to her, behold, you are with child and you will bear a son, and you shall call his name Ismael, because Yahweh has given heed to your affliction. He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand will be against him, and he will live to the east of all the brothers. Then, have I read enough? Where's Islam in that?
He's not even born here. Of course there's
No, that's not Islam.
There's not even Muhammad or Islam or even Jesus.
Exactly.
It's talking about the nation of Israel.
Yeah, it's talking about the nation of Ismail. It's not talking about Islam.
Yeah.
The strength of the Arabs in the 7th century came from their numbers. They had a
the 7th century?
Yes, they had a population explosion in the 7th century, and that's what allowed them to conquer and dominate such a great vast of land. Different civilizations at different times have had population explosions. The British did it just before our empire did it. The Romans did it just before their empire. The Persians did it just before their empire. The Arabs did it just before their empire.
I don't believe it's numbers though, because they were always had. They had
Okay,
inferior
for me,
numbers.
the way I see it, God
They also had
already,
superior tactics.
the way I see it from the Old Testament, God already set up a plan to be a big, a blessed, a great nation for Ismail.
Yes.
And this nation must be presented at the moment. If you're gonna deny this nation, that
Do you accept there are Arab Christians?
Of course, a lot.
Right. So my point to you is that Islam has nothing to do with whether the Arabs are blessed then. Because there are Arabs who receive the blessing promised here who are not Muslim. So that means the blessing promised here is about their Arabness, not their religion.
What makes the Jewish blessed?
Their
Because God come to them
Yes.
and they become blessing.
Right.
And the same thing to Arab.
So-
what makes Arab a great big nation blessed? Because they used to be
But that's got
nothing.
nothing to do with Islam.
Arab, they used to be nothing. What make him blessed and big and great nation and is because of Islam. If Islam did not come to them, they would be
I mean, really, when the oil runs out, the Arabs will be nothing again. The only thing that's keeping their economies afloat is oil at the moment.
why would God
And you're not Arab.
why
You're
would
Berber.
why would God bless Arab?
Are you Arab?
Arab or Syria.
Syrian. So you.
Assyria.
There they go. So you're not even Arab. You're Assyrian. You see,
Assyrian, yeah.
this is Arabization. You actually have your own ethnicity with your own language and your own religion, and the Arab Muslims came and destroyed it. And you've forgotten, and you think you're an Arab. The Assyrian people have something to be proud of. Their own culture. The
Assyria.
Berbers have something to be proud of, their own culture, and Islam destroyed them both. You should be proud to be Assyrian, not proud to be Arab. The Assyrian people are proud. But you know who are the true keepers of Assyrian culture? The Assyrian Christians. And maybe you should go and join the Assyrian church, my friend. Because that's where you belong. That is where you belong, in the Assyrian church.
Anyway, now 30% of Syria
The
are
Berber
Christian.
church for you.
We have no one.
There is a Berber church in the Khyber Mountains. Or is it Kabil Mountains? The mountains in Algeria.
Algeria.
I know you're in Tunisia.
Is they from Algeria or from Morocco?
Tunis.
Tunis.
Tunis. There is no Christian people in Tunis at all. Yeah?
There are Christians in
Yeah,
Tunisia.
very few.
Growing,
Say
though.
it.
Growing.
No.
Growing. It's growing. Yeah, they say that in Algeria. It's still growing there too. It's growing in Saudi Arabia.
Who's making the numbers?
Yeah.
Anyway, for me, the way I see it,
Yeah.
the last thing I will say, that God, He set up already a plan. That's why we're not really following Jesus directly now. He set a plan, He put a line between us.
Yeah.
That we're going to be a great nation, and we must have a leadership or a messenger, so we can be a great nation. This is mentioned in the Old Testament.
No, it doesn't say
That's
that.
why He differs us from...
No, it did not say that. No, I'm sorry. It did not say anywhere that God would send prophets to the Ishmaelites.
Okay, how are we going to make a great, big, blessed nation
Show me.
without... How are we
Show
going
me.
to send His...
Show me. I challenge you, Firaz, because this is what I'm trying to say to you, and I mean this in love. You're reading something into the Bible that isn't there. Show me where God says, I will send a prophet to the Ishmaelites.
Okay, not prophet. If He said, I will make a blessed, great nation.
Yes.
How are we going to send this word?
Because
God
He
to them?
sent them kings that made them a mighty kingdom. And that
kingdom?
happens. The Ishmaelites.
And it's finished.
And it's over.
And this bless is finished.
No, the Arabs also had another blessing. The other blessing was that the Ishmaelites would be numerous as the stars. And that's what happened in the 7th century. It's got nothing to do with Islam.
And it's finished now.
There is no, well, even that, the blessing of the Arabs is that they are still numerous.
I think the
Yeah.
blessing of the Arab, because they are
Can we
blessed
be
is
clear for
because
us?
of Islam.
You're not Arab.
If I'm Arab or not?
You're an Assyrian.
Okay, what are you doing?
I'm Saxon. He's Berber. None of us are Arabs. And the Arabs have got us all arguing about their religion. Right?
Anyway,
Stop.
this is the only thing
Bro,
I see, as I said, I think God
Firas,
He put the plan
Firas,
between us.
be
Fine.
proud of your Assyrian identity.
I'm proud.
And your Assyrian identity has its own language. Syriac is the language of the Syrian people. And it has its own religion. Christianity is the religion of the Syrian people. This is focus on me, Firas, focus on me, yeah? Like I excluded the atheist guy, focusing on me. So the fact is, this is your identity.
Originally,
Yeah?
before.
And the Berbers were Christian before Arabization. Yeah?
There's so many subjects, but
Show me,
why do you think the Quran is...
Firaz, show me in my Bible where God says He's sending prophets to the Ishmaelites.
I'm gonna read it again properly. We haven't read
Okay.
the Old Testament before, and I'll get back to you because
Right.
I've seen other verses. God said, mentioned clearly.
But
something to
do you
with
know?
this
Do you know in the Quran it says that the gift of prophecy was given to the house of Israel?
I haven't read that.
The prophets were sent to the house of Israel.
Prophets were sent, yes.
Yes. Up until Muhammad's coming, name me a prophet in that period of time that went somewhere else.
No, sorry. Sarah.
So who's he? Sorry.
Sarah, the one of Ad.
Are you talking about Jonah?
No.
Isaiah
not Israel,
42
this is an
verse
Arab
11.
Okay. Right. But, no, wait. Was that before? So this is a prophet that we wouldn't recognize.
I don't think, no, it's not.
Yeah, well, this is not a prophet we would recognize. We only know of one Old Testament prophet that was sent by God to who? The Assyrians in Nineveh. That was the only prophet that God bothered to send anywhere, and He sent them to the Assyrians, not to the Arabs.
But that creates a problem, doesn't it?
Well, it does create a problem for Islam.
No, for you.
Isaiah,
The fact that there is no
Isaiah
prophets outside of
42
Israel.
Isaiah 42.
No, he was an Israeli prophet that God sent to Nineveh.
No, I mean the fact that there is no non-Israelite prophets before Jesus came.
So even Jonah, are you wanting? Right? Are we letting these guys into the conversation? Fine.
He's a tough guy.
By the way, our conversation's going to end now because these guys are going to dominate.